8:45 News and Views on Salam Media. Welcome back. And I very proudly would like to say that there isn't a week or possibly even a day that goes by without us here at Salam Media not covering a story as far as the Palestinian plight is concerned. And we're doing it once again this morning. We're going to be talking with Martin Jansen. He's the executive member of Palestine Solidarity Campaign based in Cape Town. But we are looking at a more localized story, but it does, in fact, impact on the Palestinian people indirectly, I might add. And this has to do with someone called Gabriela Faber, and she is an additional member of the incoming ANC Women's League here in Gauteng. There is an article going back to 2020 where the headlines read as follows: Gabriela Faber, a 22-year-old Jewish student at Wits University, is very possibly an unprecedented phenomenon, at least when it comes to campus politics, and the fact that she proudly identifies as a religious Zionist. She came in second on the PYA's slate of 13 candidates and was duly elected to the Wits Council on October the 7th. And as I said, this report dates back to 2020. But let's cross over to you, Martin Jansen. You are the executive member of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, and you're based in Cape Town. What do you make of all of this? Good morning and welcome.
Hi, thank you, Julie, and good morning to you and the viewers. Look, I'm not familiar or sufficiently familiar with Ms. Faber, other than what you and I have read on the internet and social media. But in terms of your question, I must say I'm not surprised that she's been included in the leadership of the ANC and its structures. I think it's an indication of the extent to which the ANC over the past 3 decades has degenerated. I think there's an element of opportunism on the part of the ANC, who accepts someone who openly supports Zionism, settler colonialism, and of course we know all the atrocities of the Israeli regime that's been going on for at least 80 years in the historic land of Palestine. So I'm not surprised. And, this comes at a time when the ANC is also under threat. It's threatened with the loss of the majority in the national elections and probably in quite a few provinces as well. So perhaps, I don't know, on the part of the ANC, perhaps there's a sense that, with someone like Ms. Faber in their ranks, they could attract more white votes or Jewish votes, etc. So yes, I think there are two things. The one is the immediate context of the elections coming up next year. So there's an element of opportunism. And on the other, it also indicates the degeneration of the ANC politically, that it's compromised itself politically. On the one hand, for several decades, the ANC has had a strong position in support of the Palestinian liberation struggle. And now it accepts someone who's openly Zionist. So I think it's compromised itself politically as well.
So technically, they've actually let down the Palestinian people. Whenever you talk to Palestinian activists, they are in awe and have huge respect for us in South Africa. Knowing what we've been through as far as the apartheid era is concerned, I kind of wonder how they're going to respond to an article and to a discussion like this. They really and truly are going to be feeling very let down, and possibly to a point where, and maybe it's quite radical what I will be saying, but they'll feel like they've been sold out totally.
Yeah. Look, I think for many, many years, the ANC and the ANC government has successfully deceived our Palestinian friends and comrades. Over many years, there have been resolutions in support of the Palestinian cause, but in terms of concrete actions, it's been very, very limited. There have been these temporary, the ambassador to Palestine, to Israel, suspension of the status of the ambassador, the office closed, etc., etc. But nothing significant beyond that. I think we need to ask, why is it that the South African government, given its own history, has not adopted a policy of BDS, of boycotts, divestments, and sanctions, which was so successful in supporting our struggle, our liberation struggle in the 80s. And we've made, representations to the ANC. I remember years ago with Minister Ibrahim, where we pushed and said, look, why is the ANC not doing anything significant? And his response was, civil society should pressurize them so that they have a, justification to the US, Israel, the international, so-called international community, to go ahead with sanctions against Israel. Now, interestingly, it wasn't long after that where we had a mass march, and the estimates were something like anything from 150 to 200,000 people, a national march in Cape Town, calling for sanctions against Israel and boycotts, and nothing happened, of course. So, look, I think, unfortunately, our Palestinian friends and comrades have been deceived over many years. The ANC government is not serious about supporting them. But of course, this goes a step further than before. Recently, Minister Pandor has been making very, very progressive statements against Israel. But I think this contradicts all of that and shows, I think, the true position of the ANC, unfortunately.
I'm kind of wondering how you view a story we covered last week or the week before about Gayton McKenzie and his team having visited Israel according to them, according to their press statement, to go and understand how coalition politics work. And I mean, they could have gone to any other part of the world to understand coalition politics. And here, Gayton McKenzie and his group undoubtedly were also raised in the apartheid era and should have and would understand what apartheid was all about. And lo and behold, they go and spend a week or longer, 10 days possibly, as guests of Israel, I presume as guests of Israel, to understand coalition politics. Your thoughts?
Look, I think it was a mutually beneficial visit for Gayton McKenzie and his party. I think we shouldn't underestimate the impact that BDS has had, the movement has had over the last decade at least. And the Israeli government certainly sees and feels the pressure. There's a tide that's turning globally, including amongst young Jewish people in the US, which traditionally has been the biggest supporter of Israel and Zionism. So the Jewish state, Israel, the Israeli regime is threatened, right? And it's desperate to turn that tide around and to win support for Israel, right? So that's the situation on the one hand. On the other hand, Gayton McKenzie and his party seek support. They particularly want funding to support their efforts to win more votes in the election. So again, it's not coincidental that visit takes place now. They're looking for funds to support the campaign to win more votes in the election next year. And they are also aware of the desperation of Israel to turn the tide of support in favor of them in South Africa. So in all probability, they probably offered and said, look, they are in a position in certain provinces and possibly nationally of being, these small parties pride themselves as being so-called kingmakers, that in the event of the ANC not winning a clear majority, parties like theirs and others are in a position to influence the ANC And in this case, of course, particularly its position in relation to Israel. So that's the kind of mutual beneficial arrangement that Gayton and his party have probably come to with the Israeli regime. And we can expect that they will get funding for their elections campaign. So literally, it's kind of what we traditionally refer to as a sellout political arrangement, and they'll be paid to do the dirty work of Israel in South Africa.
More like selling your soul to the devil, isn't it? But be that as it may,
Yes.
let's come back to Gabriela Faber. Let's also understand she openly says that she is identifies herself as a religious Zionist. Let's just, for the purposes of this discussion, let's make a clear distinction between Jewish people, sensible, humane Jewish people versus Zionism and Zionist ideologies.
Yeah. Look, I think the question, of course, and look, I don't want to conjure up any conspiracy theories or aspects, right? But one needs to ask, why would any intelligent person, which presumably Ms. Faber is, why would they want to not just simply be a member of the ANC, but also elevate themselves to leadership of the ANC, when the ANC government's track record has been so atrocious in many, many respects, to the extent, as we know, that the factional fights in the ANC has caused them to even kill each other, for positions like councillor or mayor and so on in certain municipalities. So it is a party that's degenerated. It is, for some of us, we would say that it's rotten. It's rotten to the core. So why would someone like Ms. Faber, a young, intelligent white woman, join the ANC? And one has to be suspicious. And as I said earlier, the Israeli regime and the Zionist movement is desperate to defend Israel against BDS. And I think it's a similar move on her part and their part to get someone like her in an influential position in the ANC and in government, to influence the ANC not to move in the direction of supporting BDS. So that's my analysis of this situation. And on the other hand, again, a mutually beneficial arrangement. The ANC hopes that it will win support of white people and probably the Jewish community as well, since Ms. Faber is in a position of leadership and in all likelihood should be campaigning for the ANC in the elections in 2024.
Martin Jansen, Executive Member of Palestine Solidarity Campaign based in Cape Town. Thank you indeed for your insights on this matter. You have really clarified exactly where Ms. Faber sits on this issue, where the ANC sits, and how we as lay people understand and view the situation. Thank you once again. God bless. Go well.
Thank you for having me.
It is exactly 8:58 News and Views on Salam Media. Standing by with the bulletin of the morning is our correspondent, and that, of course, is Zai Jadwood. Please stay with us.
Or wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Salam Media, a global voice for humanity.
There's no charge against the president for money laundering. Whatever we think might have happened at Pala Pala, we are a country where you are presumed innocent until you're proven guilty. That's some opinion. They're entitled to that opinion, but it has absolutely no bearing whatsoever on what the issue is around grey listing. I would suggest we pay much closer attention to the money and the massive amounts of capital escaping our country from private capital operations, people who are abusing the tax and abusing capital gain transfers, foreign exchange controls, criminal that are using South Africa as a clit for drug monies and all sorts of this is where the real problems lie.
Dr. Dale, the political analyst and economist.
This is Salam Media.
Education, health, dignity, empowerment. These wishes all begin with water. Africa Muslims Agency is committed to